formal matrix system or whatever, if you wouldn't mind going just down the line to give your assessment, city commissioners.
Sure.
Commissioner Zerdy?
Let's start. Well, since I've only been here since November, but I know that you have a diverse group in your office, and I think we've enjoyed the stable of folks that have been there. You've been always accessible, been clear, and I've had nothing but a good, I guess, rapport with anybody in the office, especially with Glenn. So I think you've been doing a good job, and I think the economics of that decision that was made to have your firm represent the city was a very smart one, and hope you continue to stay as attentive as you all have been.
Commissioner Marceau?
I'm very happy with Glenn and his team. I'm very happy that he brings multiple people with multiple expertise to the table. We used to have one attorney, and now I feel we have 5 or 6 at any given time, depending on what we need help with. And if you remember our budget talks, we've saved quite a lot of money. We've actually cleared up quite a few lawsuits. We've got a couple more coming up. And I think you're doing a phenomenal job, and I would love for you to consider staying on more of a permanent.
Commissioner McBoy?
I too am very happy with how things have gone with Attorney Torsivia's firm. I think that we have benefited both from the multiple attorneys that are in the firm and the expertise that makes available, but also from the experience that they all have with other communities. I think that has been to our advantage, so keep it up.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I've had the opportunity over the years to work with Glenn, and I was really kind of surprised, and not in a derogatory way, but I'm surprised that you were able to be as responsive in this position as you have been as a part-time position in the past, and that your entire team is that responsive. And it's really refreshing to know that if we have a concern or we have a question, that we get the answer just about in real time. And that's really important because things are coming at us fast and furious. And we may not always like the opinion that you give us, but that's why we have you here. And I appreciate what you and your firm bring to the city, and I support the good work you've done, and hope that will continue into the future. Thank you.
You're okay.
Yeah. There you go.
That's the worst part about going last. They say all the things that you want to say. My biggest concern at the start of this whole process, to be honest with you, was availability. I mean, there's a certain comfort level that you have when you have staff in-house, being there all the time, being able to walk out the door and have, formerly Elaine and those guys there. I was really concerned, how can a firm, of your stature, working with other municipalities, how could you really be there for us when we had questions in an immediate nature? And I was pleasantly surprised. And I feel that way, whether you're there in the offices or Christie's in there doing different things. It's just the level, it's just something that, I never like to say, something was good or something is better or something is whatever. It's just the people that we had in the past didn't have the resources, kind of like our police officers. They did a great job, but they just didn't have enough stuff to work with to do things. And we had so many problems. We had so many lawsuits going on. It was sort of the same situation for us in regards to, our defense and our legal team, because we had so many lawsuits going on. We're spending so much money with other firms outside of the city because we just couldn't keep up with it. And the level of expertise and professionalism that your firm brings, and having so many attorneys in different areas, has really helped us to contain our costs. And to end some of the lawsuits and really tighten up our budget. And I know that we had a lot of expenses this past year, but I anticipate moving forward that we'll really be able to see some real savings. When I looked at those numbers that were provided by Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate your department doing that, so I could really give a good evaluation of it. But not only that, but you've just proven to be just a fine organization, and I would love to have you stay around. City Manager, would you like to make a comment?
I'd like to take a privilege on this, and obviously the city attorney works for you, just as I do. We end up working together, and it's been my privilege to work with Glenn and the other attorneys. And like you said, it's not any reflection on the previous configuration, but what's been amazing is we had a tremendous backlog within the organization. And there's a lot of things that happen within the city organization that the public never sees. It's just part of the operations of the government. And the backlog of items we were looking for boilerplate language for contracts, and the way things get processed, they're able to ramp up and throw the appropriate amount of staffing as the workload comes and goes. And that's been really good for the operation efficiency of the organization internally. And through all the legal advice and avoidance of lawsuits, those are things you don't hear about, but through good legal advice and having, it's kind of like having that, I've got this tool chest in my storage unit that has all these different drawers of all the different kinds of tools. So, Barbara Alterman brings a tremendous amount of wealth and knowledge when you need her. And Christie's here every day, and I'm really, and Glenn, his ability to come to these meetings and to run to the main agenda. It's just been a real efficient and effective process, and I just wanted to let you know, and thank you for having him. Working with him has been a great privilege, and I do appreciate his expertise. So.
What is the formal process next now we have an evaluation, is there,
We sing He's a Joy to the Top.
was thinking, and is there a contractual term, is there
If I could,
a city attorney? That's what would pay you the big bucks.
not so much on the process. The agreement is an open-ended agreement, so everybody knows. It can be terminated at any time on, I think it's 30 days notice, so there is no.
There's no need to do it any
Right.
formality.
If you're ever unhappy with this, you just tell us you're unhappy, hopefully that never happens. But I want to say thank you to all of you, and for a couple of things. First, you guys are a great team to work with, whether it's the staff we're working with, or whether it's the mayor and commissioners. But I noticed that each and every one of you used the term team or term like team in describing our office. And makes me feel really good, because that's what we strive to be. We are a team. You all know them, the folks that don't know everybody. Some of you may see Christy, who's here at least 2 days a week. Christy is amazing. She does everything. Best contract lawyer I've ever known in 30-something years of practicing law. And so, you have a tough contract, you're going to throw it at Christy. As Mike said, Barbara Alterman, planning and zoning. She was the county's director of that department for 13, 14 years as a lawyer. So she brings something to the table. Laura Donlin, who nobody ever sees. She does human resources, HR stuff, and employment. And hopefully not going, you've noticed there really hasn't been any major employment issues. And as Mike said, we try and avoid litigation and avoid a problem. I love the courtroom, but it's the worst place for clients. Remember the Great Debate litigation? But our first project was bringing that in for Landon, because we were bleeding $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a month on legal fees for outside lawyers. So we try to solve problems, we try to avoid problems. You don't usually see Jennifer, all these ordinances that I read, who do you think writes them all? I didn't write them all. Jennifer wrote a lot of them. She wrote 15 code enforcement ordinances this last 6 months. So everybody brings a little something different to the table, and I appreciate all of your kind words, and obviously we want. And the newest addition, I was just going to say, our newest addition, no one's made, is Lisa Conforti. Lisa was an assistant city attorney at West Palm Beach for 8 years, and was a lawyer in California before that. And she's beginning to work more and more with Williams' department in code enforcement and in litigation, and in trying to manage the outside litigation. On the budget, I don't know if you all remember when I was in that side of the audience a year or so ago applying, I was astounded at how large the legal budget was and thought it should be reduced. So we're projected, and I appreciate working with Steve's staff, we're projecting to be at least $50,000 below last year's budget. That's with all the payments that have been made on the Great Bay lawyers and the transition of law firms. I'm very optimistic that next year, hopefully, we're at least triple in savings. Because, the point is to don't spend the money on lawyers, spend the money on resources. If the city can then use that money and hire another person, whether it's in code enforcement or, public services, the beach, wherever, that's where the money needs to be spent. So we appreciate it. We look forward to staying here as long as you'll have us.
Well, thank you. We don't have to make a decision on this, so normally I wouldn't allow public comment, but we have several cards here. Do you have cards here too?
One moment, I just need clarity. There is a motion involved. Is that correct, Jan?
Yes, the commission are satisfied with Mr. Torsivier, if you would like to designate him as the city attorney. Right now, he's serving as the interim city attorney.
That's what I was asking about before.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so
Thank you.
May I?
Please do.
I move to designate Glenn J. Torcivia as city attorney.
So moved, so seconded.
Okay, so then now I can have public comment. Mr. Tim, followed by Mary Lindsay.
Peter too, yes, I think this is a much better idea, and I don't know all the factual stuff that goes on, but I can imagine what it is. And once again, as I was so rudely interrupted because I was on the wrong item, I was just saying, I don't know how his salary compares to what we would pay a regular city attorney. I guess I'm about to find that out. We're gonna find out how much he is going to
Well, they
charge.
indicated with him, we're about $50,000 below last year's budget for legal, and we're next year, we're hoping to be at least a couple $100,000 below that. But the point is to save the overall money, whether it's
Stick around, stick around.
wherever it's
Stick around.
going, we want to save money.
And the one thing I was surprised at he was talking about all these code enforcement ordinances we have written, and yet I haven't seen any action yet. I expected to find many cases going on the tax roll this year. I understand I may be happy if there is one. With all these ordinances, I was expecting a heck of a lot more.
Thank you. Ms. Lindsay, followed by Ms. Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Mary Lindsay, 327 Columbia Drive. The only thing I'd like to see changed about what it says on the front of every commission, instead of interim city attorney, I too would prefer that it was the Glenn Torcivia Law Firm serves as the city's attorney. Being one of this law firm's clients, I think has added a level of independence. The professionalism and the expertise go without, you don't need me to tell you how great that is. But the level of independence, this is the first time, I've been around a lot longer than last November, for the last 10 years. I've watched city's attorneys. There was a time when we had 4 full-fledged attorneys on staff, employees of the city. This is the first time in the 12 years that I've been involved with the city of Lake Worth that we have had that level of independence where it did not, there was no perception, at least for me, that our city attorney works for the city manager. There really is a level of independence here, and it seems for the first time we have those 3 layers. I mean, I'd also like to see the internal auditor's name on this too, since those 3 positions all are lateral and report to the city commission. But this is a first. Don't change this. Don't you dare hire Glenn Torcivia and make him a city employee. Please continue to hire Glenn Torcivia's law firm to serve this city. Thank you.
Ms. Sharp?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know.
It's another roast.
I think he's marvelous. I thought he ran away after the first meeting because he wasn't at the second meeting. I thought he had escaped Lakewood. I've had the opportunity to work with Barbara when I was on the historic board, and she is fantastic. I can see that he's saving us some money, and I'm sure he'll save us some money in the future. I can't believe the code enforcement. I just can't believe what we've done with the code enforcement ordinances and regulations and fines and liens and everything else. John Rinaldi used to stand here. Probably every meeting he came and said, hire an outside firm, hire an outside firm, hire an outside firm. Well, you did it. I don't want him to become a employee of the city. I like it just the way it is. He works for you people. I love Michael, but he doesn't work for Michael. And I think it gives you he gives you a lot of good advice. And I think it comes from him to you. And it's not filtered by anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Rice, followed by Peggy Fisher. And then Barbara Jean Weber.
Good afternoon. Greg Rice, the Lucerne. It's an old joke, but it worth repeating in this setting. You know what the definition of a crying shame is? A bus full of attorneys driving over a cliff with 2 empty seats. You've probably heard that one. But that's certainly not the case here. I have, like Loretta just said, I have sat, or Mary, I think it was, I've sat in these meetings for years, and I've seen former city attorneys sit up here and let things go on in these meetings, being said by folks on the dais, staff people and all, that I'm saying to myself, good Lord, why don't they speak up? Why don't they, interject their professional knowledge? That has not been the case since Glenn sat in that seat. And also serving on the Planning and Zoning Board, Barbara has been she's a genius when it comes to land use things, and we're not gonna get that. A small city like this, not gonna get those resources unless we think outside the box and do things that you guys are now doing by bringing in experts on a contract basis. If you were at the commission luncheon today, the State of the City address, and you did a great job selling and representing the city, as Mike did. But a lot of cities now are going to outside vendors for all kinds of things. 2 of them were mentioned today here in the county that are in the Chambers service area. Palm Springs and, what was it, Waxahachie Groves or something. And they're going to outside. We need to do more of that. We need to get bright people working for this city and not having to worry about stacking up the employees and all that stuff by having experts. I mean, if you want an expert, hire one, don't try to be one. You guys are doing a great job serving this city in your capacities from all different walks of life, but we need smart people that we can rely on here and in the utility department and everywhere that this city can. That's not only save money, but to do a better job for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Peggy Fisher?
Peggy Fisher, North 8th Street. I agree with everything that's been said by everybody else. One thing that I was really pleased to see was every one of you had the same assessment of Mr. Tercidia. You were all in agreement on his value to this city and his firm's value to this city. And that is nice to see that there is unanimous consensus among you all of the value of Mr. Tercidia and his firm. And I agree that we should take away the interim part. It should just be that his firm is our city attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weber? Barbara Jean?
Good evening. From a slightly different point of view, as a resident, a myriad of questions I know from me was very precise, well thought out, although I may not necessarily agree from a legal point of view, my limited point of view. The accessibility to the residents, questions we may have, even after the meetings. Very, very helpful, very informative, and the tone that you bring, again, affectionately I say, I may not always agree, but the tone is gracious, and I thank you for bringing that to this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one comment, City Manager, you can confirm. We talked about this today just very briefly in reference to another matter, but it was something that I brought up too, that in contracts, employment, that we use the firm name, and that was what Ms. Lindsay had brought up today. I talked about in other contract employees, or contract whatever, that if there's a corporation involved, that we contract with the firm name as opposed to, because there are different ramifications from a legal standpoint of doing that rather than, because this is not just you, Glenn.
The contract is with the firm.
Yeah,
It is.
It is with the law office.
correct.
It is with the law.
Yes.
We get them all.
Okay, just want to make sure that we do that in reference to all types of contract work.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yes, agreed on that. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? You're in.